Welcome back to the Realm Report. It's been a pretty relaxed month, with the big focus being the Mario Kart themed build competition. I'll touch more on that in a bit. For now, let's jump right into the topics. I wanted to start off by discussing a pretty unique shop that was introduced last month. Head Game is a PvP minigame where you kill other players to score points. With an entry fee of 100 gems, the more people who enter, the greater the rewards. Each round runs for 2 weeks, and those participating in the game wear iron armor to distinguish themselves from other players. The armor can be enchanted in any way you like. For a more detailed list of instructions, you can head over and check out the rulebook, or speak with Tesna if you have any questions. This is a pretty interesting concept, and it would be cool to see more people get involved. On March 6th, a bunch of us got together at the exchange to reveal the true identity of the Warden. In total, 3 people correctly guessed that it was Black Lightning. Those were Resculin, Squared Rat, and Tesna. I thought it might be fun to share who else received votes. I'll leave it to those who voted to decide if they want to come forward and reveal why they voted the way they did. For some reason, I still received 2 votes, despite clearly stating, it's definitely not me. Recently, Plague Doctor posted an image to the Discord depicting what appeared to be not 1, but 2 white-like pastes. I originally believed this to be nothing more than photographic fakery, an attempt at more anti-paste propaganda. But then I was contacted by a source very close to some of A&W's top leaders, and although this person has requested to remain anonymous, they confirmed that the image was in fact legitimate. But how could this be possible? And what did it mean? Well, earlier in the month, Plague Doctor made a post about job opportunities over in
Gfx.
Now, I rarely pay attention to what Plague posts in the Discord, but according to my source, this post apparently gained very little traction. And after realizing that he could no longer manipulate Oldies into doing all his work for him, Plague became enraged and blamed me for exposing his corruption. It was right there that he decided to refocus his efforts. If he couldn't recruit builders, he'd create his own. And he began doing extensive research on the process of cloning. Utilizing parts he acquired from Lynn's TARDIS, he managed to assemble a cloning device. And since he blamed me for forcing him to go through all this trouble in the first place, I was chosen as the guinea pig for the machine. All he needed was a piece of my trench coat, a piece I unknowingly delivered during my brief encounter with him for the Rules and Etiquette video. And with that in place, he began creating white-like paste clones at an alarming rate, quickly putting them to work in an effort to grow his own personal empire. But there was one factor that Plague didn't consider while putting this plan together. Anyone who's played with me on a consistent basis knows that I'm not exactly the fastest builder. In fact, I'm widely considered one of the slowest builders in the history of Minecraft, which meant that even if these clones were to consistently build 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it would still take them 147 years to finish just 1% of what Plague was hoping to achieve. This meant that he was now stuck with a bunch of useless white-like paste clones. Needless to say, I found this entire situation very intriguing. So I headed over to Plague's palace, where I was told the clones were being stored. But no amount of intel could have prepared me for what I'd find when I got there. And as I stood there, face to face with these mirror images of myself, I started to imagine what the old world would look like if there were multiple Plague Doctors. I mean, one's bad enough. I realized that I couldn't allow this type of technology to continue to exist, and I dismantled the machine. So what became of all the white-like paste clones? Well, I couldn't just leave them there, forced to endure Plague's company, so I set them free. They're currently exploring the uncharted regions of the old world, far away from Plague Doctor, and free to build as slowly as they'd like. I'd like to address something a few people brought to my attention last month. Apparently, Discord has a limit on the number of reactions you can make on a single post. This means that you may receive this message when attempting to respond to the activity check. If you see this message, it just means that you can't add any additional emotes to a post, but you can still click on one that was already selected by someone else. So if you find yourself in this situation, just do that and you'll be good to go. It's a minor inconvenience, but I know it was throwing some people off. Earlier this month, I released a video covering the rules of the old world and general Minecraft etiquette. There's a lot of information in there, so if you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend doing so when you get a chance. One of the topics discussed in that video addressed the floating trees that are becoming a more frequent occurrence around the capital. One person who has taken a special interest in the subject is Upton. He's back with us today to share a method you can use for easy tree removal. At the end of February, we held the first ever Snowman's Leaf Spleef at the Aquarius Fish Bowl. This event set an attendance record and was the first to feature 16 active participants. POS Princess managed to pull off an upset by coming back from the lower bracket and defeating the previously undefeated Zulu twice in a row. Zulu came in second, and Just Call Me BMX placed third. There were some concerns going into the event that we may experience problems with breaking the drip leaves. There were a few minor issues here and there, but overall it was a pretty successful event. The biggest problem we encountered was confusion over how to actually get to the event. As a result, Peculiar recently completed a path that extends from the Aquarius to the Fish Bowl. This will make it much easier to get there in the future. The TOW Tour was held on March 27th. We had 10 people participate in the event, and as expected, it ran pretty long at about 2.5 hours. BMX won this one, but it was a pretty close competition. I was taking notes throughout the event on some potential changes we could make to improve the course and future golf events in general. I'd like to hear some of your suggestions as well, so message either me or Upton if you have any ideas. Our next event will be the Dome Grand Prix at the Circuit of Mario Dome Champs. This is our first ever ice boat race event brought to you by Peculiar with help from Willow. We're still trying to iron out a format for the race, so keep an eye out for more details in the coming weeks. A large portion of this month was dedicated to the Mario Kart themed build competition, which took place to help decorate the area surrounding the track. Voting for the build competition is planned to follow the event. The Dome Grand Prix will take place on April 24th. And that wraps things up for this edition of the Realm Report. See you on the server.
Please don't hit me one more time. God